5:30, so I'll call the meeting of the Grafton Finance Committee on Wednesday, July 29th, 2020 to order. This meeting is being held pursuant to the Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. The various boards and committees representing the town of Grafton will conduct their public meetings and hearings via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted. So that said, we'll take attendance. I call your name, say you're here. Sue Robbins.
Here.
Irene Houle.
Here.
Barry Smith.
Barry Smith here.
Ann Kusher.
Kusher here.
Heather McHugh.
Here.
Eric Swenson.
Swenson here.
Mark Haddad is here, and we are welcoming our newest member. And if I butcher your name, sir, I want to apologize up front. Gopal Shenoy. Am I saying that correctly?
Gopal Shenoy.
Very good. Well, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you join the committee. Did you get a chance to get sworn in today?
Not yet.
Or
Not yet.
Okay. So you're here more as a guest than you are as a member since you haven't been sworn in yet.
Yeah. And
Okay,
I
perfect.
have to drop out at 6 o'clock because I have a call.
Okay.
So I thought, yeah, I'll attend for the first 30 minutes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you being here tonight. What I want to do is update the committee on what has transpired since our last meeting relative to the two vacancies and what happened and how this meeting first came about and my conversations with the town moderator since then. So when Colleen and Matt were elected and resigned from elected to the select board and resigned from the finance committee, Susan notified the town moderator of the vacancies, and pursuant to our bylaw and charter, he had 30 days in which to make the appointments. So I had reached out to him by email, and unfortunately he didn't receive my email, so I never heard back from him. And when we got to the 30th day, I got concerned because we needed to take action to get those filled. So I contacted Sue and I asked her to post a meeting and contact the town administrator's office and the town clerk's office and let them know that we were going to follow the bylaw that says if you don't make the appointments, if the appointing authority doesn't make the appointments after 30 days, then you automatically go to the committee and the committee fills the vacancy. So I did it. I miscounted and I did it on the 30th day. When the moderator found that out, he made two appointments. Mr. Shenoy was one, Margaret Haynes was the other appointment. Mr. Shenoy is from precinct 3, Ms. Haynes is from precinct 5. The way the bylaw is written, it requires, and the bylaw is very clear, it has the word shall. Finance committee shall be made up of one representative from every precinct in town. And then no precinct shall have more than 4 members. So when I looked at the roster of the finance committee, precinct 1 was not represented on the finance committee. That was Matt. Matt was our precinct 1 representative. And because there isn't a representative there, we really can't fill that vacancy. So I asked for an opinion from town council and I reached out to the moderator, and the moderator was specific that Mrs. Haynes was the appointment that he made to fill the precinct 1 vacancy. So I asked him to withhold that appointment until such time as we get an opinion from town council on how to fill, whether or not the word shall means we have to have somebody from every single precinct. So on, was yesterday, Tuesday? On Tuesday, the town moderator and I had a very good conversation. We talked about the miscommunication between the two of us and his rush to fill the vacancies on the 30th day. That I sort of forced his hand by calling this meeting tonight. So he went ahead and he made the appointments, which is his right. He is the appointing authority of the finance committee. He agreed to withhold the appointment of Ms. Haynes until such time as we get a ruling from, or an opinion rather, from town council on the meaning of the bylaw and the word shall and the representation on the finance committee. Mr. Shenoy, obviously, as a precinct 3 rep was fine because we have, I think, only one other precinct 3 rep, and I think that's you, Sue, as our precinct 3 rep. So we wouldn't exceed the number of members in any given precinct. So that's the update. Once we get the ruling or the opinion from town council, the moderator will, if it says we have to have a precinct 1 member, he will advertise that as such. And then when the applicants hopefully come into precinct one, for precinct one, he will allow the finance committee to meet with those applicants and work with him to make the appointment to fill that. So I think that was good. Had a very good conversation with Mr. Concar, and I appreciated he took the time to talk to me yesterday. It was, like I said, it was a very, very good conversation. So that's the update on the appointments. We're very excited to have Mr. Chenoy on board. We look forward to getting a 9th member of the finance committee, because we do have a lot of work ahead of us coming up this fall and going into the budget cycle for next year. Are there any questions on that? Any concerns, any issues? Yeah, Barry.
Where is precinct 1?
I knew you were going to ask that. I don't know.
I
Sue?
think it's North Grafton.
North Grafton?
I think.
Northeast Grafton, like that abuts Westboro.
I'm lucky I found precinct 5, so at least I know where I am.
Oh, yeah, Matt Often was precinct 1.
He was our precinct 1 rep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's over by, yeah, I know where that is.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark, for talking to Dan. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
it was good. He was great. We had a really good conversation. So I was very appreciative of his time, and it was good. So we have an understanding now. It was a lack of communication on both of our parts, and we were able to work out the issue. He wants to work cooperatively with us. He wants to talk to us at some point about how we will participate in town meeting, what role we will play. Will it be different? Will it be the same as we've been playing in the past? So he's very interested in having those types of conversations with us. So I appreciated his time, and I look forward to working with him moving forward. So that's the update on that. With regard to the next item on the agenda, it's to review the day and time that worked for all members for general meeting dates. Sue sent out a schedule. Sue, you possible to share the schedule on the screen for everybody to see it? This is very exciting, waiting for it to pop up on the screen.
Cue the talent.
No luck, Sue.
Here we go.
I used to do corporate video, so.
I like that. You do that very good job.
Oh, I might not be, there we go. Is that up?
It is. So if you can scroll up so we can see the top line. Okay, so August 26th will be our next general public meeting.
Yep.
Hopefully we'll have a new member in a full slate then. And I believe, I'll work with Sue to figure out the agenda for that meeting. We'll reach out to everybody. If you have any issues you want on the agenda for that meeting, please reach out and let me know so that we can add it to the agenda. I want any time, obviously, that anybody has an issue you want on the agenda, please reach out to Sue or I, and we'll make sure anything you want on the agenda will placed on there. So it looks like the town meeting is going to take place on what date? October 17th?
19th.
19th. Okay, so the town meeting is going to take place on October 19th. So we will need to start our public hearing after the warrant is signed by the select board. And that'll be on Tuesday, September 29th will be the public hearing after that. And then we'll schedule a couple of extra dates if we need it, depending on the number of warrant articles. Do those dates appear to be okay for everybody?
So
Mark, I just want to interrupt for a second.
Please do.
I think right now we are set to meet on a Monday night as per the usual, in the charter.
Oh,
I
yes.
suspect we will still be under COVID restrictions, which means that meeting is either going to be Saturday, October 17th, or it's going to be the following Saturday, which would be 19, 20, 21, 22, the 23rd.
Okay.
So just kind of keep that in mind. If it goes to the 23rd, it's not such a big deal. If it goes back 2 days, we just have to make sure that we have met whatever the requirements are for anything that has to be held within so many days of town meeting.
Yeah, Sue, does the 29th date for the public hearing work for the 17th as well as the 19th? That's a very good point Irene brought up.
Yes, it does.
Okay,
What we have, this is all marked a draft.
Yep.
Because the, scrolling up here for the, select board to sign on September 22nd, that is still up in the air. The other date for them to sign is September 29th, of which I had sent a message to Becca that we honestly cannot meet that requirement. So that's why I've been waiting to hear from Becca today. I'm sure I'll hear from her, before August 26th. But with this, this is what I wanted you all to see, but it is still in draft form.
okay. I think, but let's focus on, we know we're gonna meet on the 26th.
Yes.
And if everything goes according to Hoyle with the date of the town meeting, we will need to hold our public hearing, the first one on September 29th. So if everything goes right now, if we need to adjust it, obviously we'll know on the 26th of August. But does that date work for everybody if we schedule? I know it's 2 months in advance. Actually, it's exactly 2 months from now. But does that date seem to be okay with everybody?
I have no known conflicts at this time.
Okay. All right. So that's what we'll do. And then we'll go through the dates and we'll get town meeting going. We'll have as many public meetings public hearings as we need. We'll have a final public hearing the following Tuesday to finalize everything that we need to do. And then we'll, go and meet with the select board and the town moderator prior to town meeting like we always do. And then hopefully town meeting will take place and everything will go fine. So any other questions on that issue?
Mark, can I interrupt you, please?
Please interrupt anytime.
Add to the story. So yesterday, the whole purpose of me trying to get this agenda out to you folks as a finance committee is to make sure that we had the Zoom account scheduled. And yesterday, we received information from Cindy Ide in the administration's office asking us if we would like to handle our own Zoom account. And what that would do is that would free up us trying to find a date and a time, since we would be dominating several evenings in the fall, especially. So that, so I have a message back to her to saying how much, how's it going to affect our, time and our budget. But that it also sounded like the right answer, and that I would, speak to you folks today to see what your opinion is of having our own account.
I think that's a great idea. To get our own account, depending on the price, shouldn't be that bad.
I think
Now,
it's $15 a month, maybe
How much?
20, 15 a month.
Oh, that's well worth it.
Yeah.
I think it's
Maybe
more if
20.
you want the webinar feature. I think it's like 40 or something, but still, I think it's totally a very
Yeah.
small amount in terms of town budget.
Yeah,
Scale.
40. Yes, if you want webinar, it's $40 per month per host. It says, yeah,
That's what I have, is the webinar.
yeah.
So it makes sense. So it makes sense with the finance committee members that we should get our own
Mhm.
account. We should be able to find the money in the budget for it.
Right.
yes, it would. And we actually reduced our expense account from 800 to 500, and that would kind of take care of that with the other small expenses that we have in that particular expense area. But we have a large amount for the legal posting and printing that usually that will be able to support it just fine.
Okay, so that's perfect. That's exactly what we'll do then. Thank you, Sue, for working on that and getting that to us. It
Okay,
makes sense.
welcome.
And by the way, I have a Zoom account that I don't mind utilizing if we have to. So if we run into a problem and we're not able to get it, I have no problem using my account
Okay,
for
great.
this. So we have that as a backup, which is good. Okay, so that takes care of the schedule. while we're talking about schedule, one thing that we do need to talk about that's not on the agenda is Sue. So, as you know, she's retiring and has decided that she doesn't want to help us anymore. No, I'm just kidding, Sue. Has decided that she's moving on, but she's been gracious enough because of remote participation to stay with us. So she has a plan in place that at the August 26th meeting, hopefully she will have all of the minutes done for all of our meetings that we had prior to town meeting and this meeting and the previous meeting after the election. And hopefully we'll get those all approved at the August 26th meeting. And once those have been approved, we'll be all caught up with minutes, which is great. Sue is going to notify the town administrator's office of her intent to retire. They'll advertise the job. I have sent an email as I was directed by this committee last time to the town administrator, asking to allow us to participate in the hiring process. The response I got back from the town administrator was he will take that into consideration. So I'm waiting, once that gets all advertised, hopefully we'll hear back and we'll be able to, at least maybe do some interviews with the town administrator and filling the position. Since this position works for us, I think we should, hopefully he'll allow us to work with him in the hiring process. We're trying to get an overlap so that Sue can help train the new person. It would be perfect if Sue can stay with us through town meeting and work with the new person, and we get somebody on board by then so that that person is trained going into the budget cycle. Because once town meeting is in, we have a little bit of a lull before we get right into the budget. So we'll need to hopefully get somebody on board and they'll be able to work with us and work with Sue and get us done. We may need a reserve fund transfer for our salaries to get us through that, or a line item transfer at town meeting. We'll obviously keep an eye on the budget and try and figure out how that will all work once the new person is hired. So that's the plan moving forward. Are there any questions on that?
Did you discuss with the town administrator a job description and salary range at all?
Yes, I'm sure. Thank you, Sue. That's a great point. Rebecca Meekins sent me the job description. Sue and I reviewed the job description. I think Sue made a couple of updates to it. I gave that back to the town administrator. I assumed those were accepted. And that job description will be the one that's used. As far as the salary, I don't think we have figured out what the position is going to be advertised for. So I'll have to follow up on that, Sue. But we did review, Sue and I both reviewed the job description, and we were very comfortable with it moving forward.
Good.
Any other questions with regards to that? Okay, so when I spoke with the moderator yesterday, I did not bring this up because I didn't know if we were going to go forward with it. But I will talk to him, and that's the next agenda item. Sue, if you can share, get rid of this screen and put up the proposed warrant articles. I work, as you all know, and I say it all the time, and so you're probably sick of me saying it, but I work for the town of Groton. And the way the finance committee is appointed in Groton is not by any one board. It's not made by the moderator. It's not made by the select board. It's actually a committee, and we call it the Troika. And it's made up of the chair of the finance committee, the chair of the select board, and the town moderator in making the appointments. The reason that we've done that is if you go through our charter and if you go through the boards and committees, every single appointment that's made has to be either made by or ratified by a board or committee. No single person has appointing authority other than the moderator. So when the town administrator makes an appointment, that appointment has to be ratified by the select board, or the select board as a board makes an appointment. So to remove politics, to remove confusion, and to remove everything else, the town of Groton created a troika, a three-person committee that makes the appointments to the finance committee. It removes any political discussion from it, and it allows for an open process. It's a posted meeting where interviews would have to take place, because as a committee, it has to post so the public can actually witness the appointment process. Right now, the moderator, when he makes an appointment, he just makes the appointment, and there's no public participation or input, or there's no required, I should say. Let me make that clear. There's no required public participation or input into the process. by forming a committee to make the appointment of the finance committee, and I think the finance committee is a very important committee, and there should be some sort of public participation or public witnessing of the appointment process. There is on every other appointment that's made. When the town administrator makes an appointment, the select board have to ratify it. That's at a public meeting. When the select board makes an appointment to, the Board of Health that's going on right now, that appointment is made in public. The public can participate in that. So I think, and I'm recommending to the finance committee, that we present these 2 warrant articles that would create this 3-member committee to appoint the finance committee. There would need to be 2 articles. The first article would be to amend the charter, which would create the 3-member committee. That's the first article that you see here. And then the second article, if you scroll down, Sue, the second article would amend the bylaw. And then the bylaw would also call for the 3-member committee to make the appointment. I didn't change any other wording in the charter or any other wording in the bylaw other than who makes the appointment. All the other language that you see here is the way the current bylaw is written right now. So I'm making this recommendation. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and I'd be interested to hear if the finance committee is interested in presenting these to the select board for insertion into the warrant for the fall town meeting.
Three of us with our hands up.
I can't, I see, because Sue's sharing the screen, I can't see anybody right now, so I don't know who's,
Do you want
raising
the
hand.
screen down?
yeah, you can bring it down. I think people have this.
Dan, you had your hand up first, so I will defer to Dan.
Go ahead, Dan.
All right, so I just had one small concern. The in the bylaw article, the wording is a little bit ambiguous. Where in the second to last sentence, it starts with said committee, but that comes right after describing that unnamed 3-member committee of the town moderator, finance committee chair, and select board chair. But then after reading through it, it seemed like it was talking about the finance committee. So I just thought it might be worth looking into that wording and clarifying a little bit.
Dan, I agree. Like I said, the only thing I changed in the wording was the appointment process. The said committee shall choose its officers. You are 100% correct. That means the finance committee. So we can clean that up. We have time to clean that up before we submit the article to the select board. Go ahead, Irene.
So I had a couple of questions. The first one was, would the 3 members or the 3 people be able to serve as an appointing authority, or would they make a selection, but the appointment would be made by the moderator?
No, the 3-member committee is the appointing authority.
Okay, so that
So it
was
would take a
one
majority
question.
vote. It would take a majority vote, 2 votes, to
Okay.
appoint somebody to the FinCom.
Yeah, and I had 2 other concerns in terms of language, things that probably need to be inserted. One of them, it specifically says that at town meeting, we'd be appointing that, those 3 people would appoint 3 members. But what if somebody resigned and you had to appoint 4? So
Then
I
you would-
think
yeah,
that needs
We would have to
be
clear up the
allowed
vacancy
for
part.
in the wording. And my second question is, what happens if somebody has to resign partway through the year? So now let's say it's November and somebody says, gee, I have to resign. I'm not going to be able to make it till June. So that needs to be included as well. My first thought was, well, we could live without them, and technically we could, but especially if that is the sole representative from a precinct, that person really needs to be replaced.
So
Um,
the wording, Irene, I'm sorry to interrupt. So the wording in the charter amendment is fine, because that addresses anytime there's a vacancy on the finance committee, they shall be appointed by this 3-person committee. It's the bylaw section that's confusing in terms of what happens if something comes up
Right.
through the year. Okay.
But I love the idea. I'll throw that out. I think it's a great idea.
Go ahead, Sue.
Yeah, I have some real concerns about this 3-member appointing committee, only because the finance committee really, we represent the town meeting and we're the checks and balances for the town. And if one of the appointing authority, as such, the select board, is one of the checks and balances we're supposed to be checking and balancing on, I have a real concern with that. And I don't have a problem if it was the town moderator and the chair of the finance committee being the appointing authority. But I just think we lose some independence and autonomy as the finance committee having a select board involved.
Well, let me ask you this. The reason that it has to be three is, you know, if the moderator and the chair of the finance committee have a different opinion, then you're at a stalemate. So there has to be a third person to help make that appointment. And that's why we had the chair of the select board, so it's sort of to make sure that you have a tiebreaker, I guess you'd call it, or at least to be able to have a majority vote. I couldn't think of any other position in town that would be able to be on here and make that. The select board seemed to make sense, but anyway, I get you. I see what you're saying.
I thought of that as well, because then too, you don't have a tiebreaker. But since we're a 9-member board, it wouldn't be so bad if we had 2 finance committee members and the town moderator. Opinion.
No, I see what you're saying. I think having 2 members of the FinCom on there, it sort of makes it a political process then, and I'm trying to avoid that by having 3 independent individuals get together to make the appointment, and that's why 1 moderator, 1 member of the FinCom, 1 member of the select board. So go ahead, Barry.
Did you consider having the third person be the town administrator?
That's something that we can think about. But then that sort of goes back to Sue's point that we're the check and balance on his budget.
Yes,
So now he's making the appointment to the FinCom. So that's sort of,
yes.
I'd be more comfortable personally having the chair of the select board. But I understand Sue's points completely. Eric, do you have any thoughts on this? Or Dan, go ahead.
So I think with the, I definitely agree that there's an underlying problem where there's lack of required communication in both directions, input from the public, and also public insight into how the decision was made. And I think if that's the goal, I think it could be possible to just require that the town moderator have public hearings and require that the town moderator give like a written opinion, kind of like how the Supreme Court gives their written opinions explaining why they voted a certain way. They don't just vote. But I also I think
Hey, Dan,
having
Dan, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I have to drop off. It was awesome to meet all of you, and I'll see you on August 26th. And I'll make
Excellent.
sure that I'll get sworn in before that. Okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us tonight. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night.
Go
so
ahead, Dan.
just in response to the my other concern was with the 3-member committee. If somebody, so there's a process in the charter for removing people from an appointed position, and it's the appointing authority who initiates and carries out that process. And I'm not sure how that would work with this committee, particularly with the chair of the finance committee, where the this 3-member committee has an indeterminate member of the finance committee participating in that. So it would, I'm not sure how that process could begin if that 3-member committee for the chair doesn't technically exist all the time.
Well, the way the charter, you're 100% correct. The way the charter reads, the appointing authority. So say the chair of the finance committee is the one that people want removed. Well, then That could happen, especially considering the current chair, but Barry, I see your facial expressions. But the way it would work is if the chair is up for reappointment that year, somebody else on the finance committee has to be appointed to serve in that role. So if the chair of the finance committee is the one who's being considered for removal, the finance committee would have to appoint somebody to serve on the committee to make that decision. It would work in reverse of the appointing process. So that, I believe, would cover your concern there. Yes, Sue.
Well, so
Oh, sorry,
Can I
go
just
ahead,
respond to that real
Dan.
quick?
No, please continue.
So I think the difference is for reappointment of the member who is currently the chair, that is triggered by that member's term being up. Whereas if somebody wants to have, if the appointing authority wants to start that process to remove somebody, there's no trigger to tell us, the finance committee, that we need to go ahead and appoint somebody, because that appointing authority would include that somebody. So I guess if a different person, not the chair, was being problematic, and the chair of the finance committee and select board and town moderator somebody said, let's get a meeting together and talk about possibly removing this person. That's how that would get started. But with the chair, there's only the town moderator and the chair of the select board. There's a third person who has not yet been determined for that process. So that just seems odd to me.
Oh, yeah, but then eventually the finance committee would appoint somebody to serve in the chair's absence, because that's what would have to happen. Say this committee was in place this year and Dan was up for reappointment as the chair of the committee. We would have to appoint somebody to serve on the appointing authority, on the appointing committee, to replace the chair, because the chair obviously can't vote for his or her reappointment. And I would guess if the moderator and the chair of the select board decide that Mark Haddad has to go on the finance committee, they can reach out to the FinCom and say, please appoint somebody to serve on the troika representing the FinCom to consider the removal of Mark Haddad from the finance committee. I think my wife would probably second that. Go ahead, Barry. You go ahead, Barry.
Oh, Sue had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see it. Sue, go ahead.
I just had a question. The reappointing authority would be the 3-member board as well?
Correct.
Correct. And so I guess the second question I have is, I know you said you wanted to make this non-political, but we're human beings. So I'm not sure this really eliminates that altogether. But I have to say, with the discussion here, I'm starting to change my mind. I'm still uneasy about a select board member though, but only because of my past experience with former select board members and finance committee. That's where I have my doubts somewhat, but I'm changing my mind if people keep talking.
Well, you're right. Everybody, it's political by nature. I get your point 100%. But what this committee does is it puts it in the public process, in terms of there would have to be public participation, because the meeting would have to be posted and 48 hours notice, and the public can attend and watch the process and how the decision is made, which right now does not exist under the current appointing authority. Go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, I like the idea of making it a visible process, because right now it's secret, which is a little absurd these days. On the issue of if we have to remove the chair, well, 8 members vote the chair in, 8 members vote the chair out.
Good point.
That's pretty easy.
Yep.
The question of, okay, who are the 3 appointing authorities? The chair, the town moderator, because in a sense, this is eroding some of his responsibilities, but it's also making it easier for the town moderator, because now it's a little more public. Everybody can see it, everybody can hear it, and maybe even make it a little more attractive. You get somebody up there who says many wonderful things and is not necessarily a finance geek, but who can come across as solid and honest. Well, other people might be interested in joining a fun group like we have.
This is a fun group.
Yes. So the idea of the three people appointing, I think that's a really good one, especially given
Oh,
the
we
current
lost,
situation.
oh, Barry, you broke up. Your last sentence broke up.
I like the idea of having a three-member group appoint new members, especially since right now it's a relatively, I know how I got on here. I submitted a form again, and then I was told, okay, you're appointed. I thought,
That's how I got appointed.
no questions, no, who are you? You know, just, can you add? There was nothing.
Good. So go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I think the way I look at this, at the bare minimum baseline, we should make a change, which is to have this in public. I think even if it just stays only the moderator, there should be a public hearing. You know, like I look at Dan and I's appointment, we're totally different. We submitted applications around the same time. I got appointed, you know, in a couple weeks, and Dan had to, you know, meet with the previous moderator. It took months for him to get appointed, and that's not due process, right? Like that's not fair to me. So it should be in public. I totally agree with what Sue said. I don't think that the administration or the select board should be on the appointing committee, whatever you want to call it, because I think that is a conflict. And I know it isn't pleasing to have two people because you don't have a majority, but that requires a not unanimous consent between the moderator and if we had one person from finance committee. So there's never going to be somebody that gets on that the moderator doesn't like, but there's also going to be nobody that gets on that the finance committee appointed person doesn't like either. And I think the way that you solve the issue with like the chair reappointing himself is the language could read, you know, the town moderator and a member to be appointed by the finance committee each year appoints new members to the finance committee. So if the chair is up that year, ostensibly the finance committee should not vote to have the chair be the appointing authority for that cycle.
Makes sense.
Irene.
One other idea would be to pick somebody such as the town clerk.
Oh, that's actually a good idea.
You wanted 3 people.
The town clerk is an elected official like
Right,
the
is an
moderator.
elected official, yeah.
Ooh, I like that, Irene. That's a good. How do you guys feel about replacing the chair of the select board with the town clerk?
Who would be, the select board chair would be replaced?
Yes, with
Okay.
the town clerk.
That was going to be my idea because I definitely don't want the select board on there, but I think Candy or whoever's in that position, I think they would be good.
Irene, that's a great suggestion. You
I
should have
like
thought
that
about
too.
that in Groton.
I
Yeah,
like-
that's an elected position, so it's responsible to the public, like the moderator. That's a great idea.
And
I think. Are you comfortable with that, Sue?
I am comfortable with that, and I'm comfortable with the fact that if the 3 members can get together to decide what kind of questions they're going to ask in this interview, and so that the town clerk has an understanding of what questions the town clerk is going to ask, because the town clerk is not real familiar with the finance committee process and what goes on. But I like that idea. I can handle that.
Barry, before I go to you, I want to go back to Dan and Eric because you guys were raising the concerns with the select board. Does Eric, to your issue, by having that the town clerk as the third person, does that address some of your concern with that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that or what I was saying, where it's just 2 and it
Yep.
has to be unanimous, either of those works.
Okay,
Doesn't really matter to me.
Dan.
I like town clerk better than select board, but I also am a little bit concerned about having a finance committee member part of the appointing authority for Finance Committee, even if it's somebody who's not up for reelection or for reappointment. It just seems odd to have a committee who is even in part appointed by its own members. So I think you had a good point that we don't have any other appointments that are made by one person whose sole decision. I'm pretty sure we don't have any appointments that are made by the body or a member of the body that the appointment is being made for. So I think that's odd.
Eric, if I may respond to that first, I have worked in 3 other municipalities that have this, and in every one of those municipalities, the chair of the finance committee does serve as the appointment. So it is out there. It works in practice. It works in Groton. I'll tell you, it works very well in Groton. So there are, I see a point, but I think having the 3 members and having somebody on the finance committee participate in the interview and appointment process comes in with the perspective of, this is what we need on the finance committee now. We're lacking this particular person, or these are the issues that we're going to be taking on, and can speak to the people about the issues before the FinCom. So it sort of helps in the interview process, having a member of the FinCom on there. But I see your point. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, and
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. You want to follow up on that? Go ahead, please.
Well, I was also thinking the finance committee member also wouldn't really have an effect unless the other 2 members are in disagreement. So that's, I guess, another point, that it's the influence isn't that great when it's 1 out of 3 members.
Correct. Yep, not bad. That's a good point. And by the way, I want to apologize. If I don't recognize, or if I yell at me, please. I want to make sure I recognize everybody. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I would push back a little bit on Dan's concern, just because the charter does actually outline, like, the finance committee has the right to appoint its own members.
Right.
We just went through this, right? And you can be
It almost happened.
You can be uncomfortable with that, even though it is in the charter, but it is in the charter now. So I don't think it's a huge leap to have, especially if there's 3, right? Because then, they could be irrelevant to some extent. So yeah, I think the more I think about it, I think three with moderator, a person to be appointed from the finance committee each year. And I apologize for the background noise.
Okay.
I lost my train of thought. The person from finance committee. I mean, we can even get more specific in the language too, Dan, where, we could say that the person to be appointed shall not be up for reappointment in the year that they are chosen by the.
Yeah, well, that wording is in there now. We just removed the chair of the finance committee to a member appointed by the finance committee, not up for reappointment.
Exactly. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Sue Fiacco, can I ask you a question? When they haven't opened the warrant yet for town meeting, so we don't know the deadline for submittal yet, do we?
It's September 4th.
Oh, that is the deadline for submittal. Okay, so what I'll do, with the finance committee's permission, I want to reach out to the moderator, let him know that we had this discussion tonight. I'll clean it up to add the town clerk and the wording on the member of the finance committee to be appointed. And I'll bring it back. I'll put it on our August 26th agenda so that we can vote to officially submit the 2 warrant articles to the select board in time for the deadline, which is September 4th. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, I have a question. I just have a
Yeah,
question.
go ahead, Heather.
Does legal have to look at this at all? Just
When the warrant's drafted, when the warrant's presented, it goes to town council for a review.
Jenny. Okay.
So
Okay.
she will look at it. But I will tell you, the wording that you see here did go through the Attorney General review for the town of Groton, and it passed.
Okay.
Dan? Excuse me.
So I actually had a question about the charter change procedure. And actually, I was talking to Dave Robbins about it. And he brought it up. But he was saying that there's a different procedure that's spelled out in state law for changing the charter that would not require a home rule petition. It would require a vote at town meeting, a 2/3 vote, and then a ballot vote. And I wasn't, I am not sure what to think about that, but I just wanted to raise that concern.
Yeah, that's a very good point. When we did, I was on the charter review committee, as you know. So when we did the charter review, there were two ways to amend the charter. Actually, there were three ways to amend the charter. One is the way you just talked about. One is through a home rule petition that the legislature and then the governor signs, and then it becomes law. And then the third way, I think, goes through the Department of Housing and Community Development, but I'm not exactly sure how that process works. But I think for expediency, that the home rule petition works the best, so that you need a majority vote at town meeting and then a vote of the legislature. And then it goes into effect. You don't have to wait for the upcoming election. I mean, we had to just do that with Barry's amendment to change the word to select board, to the title to select board. And then we had to wait for a ballot election before it became, quote, official. So I like the home rule petition process. It still goes through a review. The legislature goes through it. They clean up the wording. Town meeting still has to approve it, and then the governor has to sign off on it. So it is something to consider. Go ahead, Barry.
Did we say that whoever the three people are going to have some guidance on questions?
They would have to set the individual committee, that committee would have to set their rules on how they go about doing it, and everything has to be in public. So I think that's how that would get addressed.
Yeah, I just picture Candy, if she's the clerk and all, having to ask substantive questions. Because right now, anytime a committee opening shows up, there's a reference to you're supposed to know the subject multiple member bodies stuff. And I always thought, what the heck does that mean? What do they do? And what do you need? You know, for example, if I was going to be on the sewer commission, I should know something about pipes, you know, and whatever. Or planning, I should know something about the rules associated with borders and whatever. We really should have some statement that says, look, if you want to be on a finance committee, these are the sort of things that you should be aware of. And then they can ask those questions and see how somebody answers them.
Well, that's a great point. And having a member of the finance committee on the appointing board allows that to take place. So that's a very good point. That's a very good point.
As long as they know the questions to ask.
Hopefully they get guidance, whoever the appointing authority is from, or the member from this board will hopefully get input from this committee before going to appointment. Yes, Sue?
I know on other search committees, and I've been involved on a couple of others, but all of the members of various people who are assigned to a particular search committee, all of their members were allowed to submit some questions, and then that search committee decided which questions would be asked. So I would think this 3-member board could do the same.
Yep, that's a good point. Oh, go ahead, Barry.
What is UGA?
What is who?
UGA.
UGA. I
This
have
is
no
an old
idea.
bugaboo. Unrestricted general government aid.
Oh, state aid.
It's only $1
I should
million or
know
so.
I
No,
should know that.
The UGA is only $1 million or so. It's not 70, it's not 90 or whatever else.
I would fail the interview, Barry. I'm already off.
We grade on a curve. It's a curve.
Thank you, fortunately. Okay, unless there's any other concerns, I will clean up the language, get it to you in advance. I'll reach out to the moderator. I'll talk to him. I'll reach out to the town clerk and talk to her, let her know that we're planning to make this recommendation, get her feedback. She may not want to do it, so we'll have to, get feedback from Candy as well. And I will put this on the agenda for our meeting of August 26th. This was a great discussion. Thank you so much for listening to my recommendation and cleaning it up and refining it. I think it's great. Next item on the agenda is we had gone forward at the, was it the fall of last year? We had a subcommittee for capital planning and we presented a bylaw. The bylaw didn't pass town meeting, but then we wanted to work with the committee to see if we wanted to come back and do that. So the question here is, do we want to continue to do that? Or do we leave it up to the select board, who I know wants to take that particular subject up, and then work with them and help support what they want to do? How does the finance committee feel about that? Sue?
There is a CIPC meeting shortly that I will be attending, and I believe that bylaw is on the agenda.
Oh, perfect.
I could have some feedback from the finance committee if they still want to go forward with that, and if they want to submit it, or have the capital improvement committee submit it, or the whichever.
That's awesome. Sue Fiacco, did you have something?
No.
No, okay. All right, I think that's great. All right, we'll wait to hear back from you then at our next meeting. We'll make sure, Sue, can we make sure this is on the agenda for our next meeting, please, as well? Is there anything else? Such an efficient body. I love it. Thank you all for being here tonight. We have the tradition of moving to adjourn, which we can do, or we can just adjourn. Is there a preference on how we handle that as a finance committee?
Make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor by roll call: Sue Robbins,
Aye.
Dan Kusher,
Aye.
Barry Smith,
Aye.
Irene Hool,
Aye.
Heather McHugh,
Aye.
Eric Swenson,
Aye.
Mark Haddad, aye. Thanks, everybody. Have a great summer. We'll see you in a month.